Lesson 15. Tips on the pause. The pause. There are two basic pauses, the natural pause and the pause for emphasis. The natural pause separates ideas and gives the speaker a chance to breathe. The pause for emphasis is a deliberate pause before or after an important word or phrase. The pause for emphasis is used to draw special attention to an important point. The correct use of the pause is one of the most effective techniques an announcer can master. I remember that the natural pause separates ideas for our listeners and gives us a chance to take a breath. We've already covered the fact that there are no hard and fast rules about phrasing, so it naturally follows that the same thing applies to pausing. Here's an example of a spoken paragraph using the natural pause to separate ideas and to take on a new supply of air. I'll mark the script with oblique stroke. One stroke will mean a slight pause with no breath. Two strokes will mean a longer pause and a chance to breathe. Some people claim middle age starts at 35. Middle age, for me, started one morning a couple of months ago when I found myself on the floor after bending over to tie my shoelace. There I was, 48 years old, with half my hair, and pretending I hardly changed since I was 21, except for 20 pounds extra. 9/11 happened, and the divorce was only a couple of years ago. My awakening was almost as startling as Rip Van Winkle's. A friend of mine once wrote, "You are getting old when your doctor is younger than you are." He was right. Now I know why women hate to admit their age. I might just say I am 39 for the 9th time. Obviously, the short pause represented only minor breaks in thought. Had these pauses been longer, the overall effect would have been choppy and disjointed. The longer pauses were made where there were distinct changes in ideas. These were the natural breathing stops. Now, let's consider the pause for emphasis. Supposing you're about to reach an important point in what you're saying, and I want to be sure the point sinks in with the listener. To create the best effect, I should slow down slightly before I reach the point I intend to stress. When I reach it, make a deliberate full stop. Then deliver the punchline with plenty of emphasis. Here's a demonstration of the pause for emphasis used to make the point. Whatever old age is, it isn't a time to start gallivanting around the country in a car or gallivanting around the world on a cruise ship. Old age should be a time to sit back near a fire and reminisce about the trips and cruises I took when I was still young enough to enjoy them. I suppose I hate middle age because I miss being young. Slow down. As George Bernard Shaw said, "Youth is such a wonderful time of life. It's a shame to waste it on the young." Slow down before I reach the point I want to emphasize. Pause before I say it, and say it with lots of emphasis. There's another kind of pause for emphasis. I can achieve much the same effect by pausing after an important point rather than before it. This technique also calls for slowing down before I reach the point to be stressed, then delivering the line with lots of emphasis, and then pausing for effect. To heighten the effect, pick up the tempo a little after the pause. Let's try it. In some cases, a combination of these two pauses can be useful. Supposing in a commercial announcement we want to give special emphasis to the name of a product or a sponsor's slogan, we can set these important ideas apart from the rest of the context by pausing slightly both before and after the key words or ideas. Here's what I mean. As I hear a short pause before and after the name of the product, it helps to set it apart and gives additional emphasis. There's one kind of pause the announcer should never use. That's the verbal pause. This is a bugbear that usually shows up in ad-lib work. It indicates a groping for words and an uncertainty about what to say next. Here's how it sounds. The weather is not very good today. It's been raining, and the wind has been cold and gusty. We've been waiting at our location here for about 15 or 20 minutes, but so far there is no sign of our honored guests. When I must grope for words, it's better to grope for them silently. The silent pauses may seem like an eternity to me. It will still sound better to my audience. By eliminating the verbalized pause, I sound a lot more interesting and authoritative. Let's try the same thing with no verbal pauses. I'll take even more time to say the same things, but my pauses will be silent ones. The weather today is very rough. It's been raining heavily, and the wind has been cold and gusty. We've been waiting at our location here for about 15 or 20 minutes, but so far there's no sign of our honored guests. I'm sure you'll agree that slow as it is, it still sounds better by eliminating O's and uhs. It's also worth remembering that with the right kind of pause, the continuity of thought continues, even when you're silent. By using the right pitch and inflection, the thought carries through the pause, no matter how long it is. Now we're waiting for the referee to gather the judges' score pads. Pause. Now he has them all, and he's heading for the center of the ring. Pause. He's looking them over carefully with the ring announcer. Pause. Now we'll have the decision. That covers natural pauses, and pauses for emphasis in their various forms. I practice the techniques learned in my everyday conversation as well as in the vocal sessions. Remember, one good pause can often say more than 10 words. Lesson 16. Improving pronunciation. Mispronunciations are noticed by informed listeners. The announcer has a responsibility to his listeners to reflect the accepted and preferred standards of pronunciation. Unless you're absolutely sure of the acceptability of any pronunciation, look it up in a dictionary. Faulty pronunciation robs an announcer of his authority and acceptance with the discriminating listener. He is also viewed as a bad influence on children and the populace in general, so far as educated speech is concerned. Not only that, but mispronunciations lower his status as a professional within the trade, hold back his advancement, affect his earning power, and, in extreme cases, even his employability. This is as it should be, because in most cases there is no excuse for mispronunciation. However, the entire subject of pronunciation should be approached with a great deal of open-mindedness and flexibility. The pronunciation of many words varies from place to place and from time to time. There are no exact rules to cover all phases of pronunciation, nor are there any exact standards to follow. A dictionary reflects the general usage of words and the standards of pronunciation adopted by educated people. A dictionary lists preferred pronunciation and secondary pronunciations, either of which can be considered correct. However, no dictionary can be considered a binding law unto itself. Remember, it does not dictate pronunciation. It simply collects and records the way English is being used and spoken at the time of publication. If more than one pronunciation of a word is considered to be correct, an announcer should use the one that he feels will be most acceptable to the people in his audience. Somebody will always disagree with my selection of certain pronunciations, and with anything as flexible and changing as a language, this is to be expected. Check the pronunciations of these words in the dictionary. Some mispronunciations are the result of careless or sloppy speech habits rather than lack of knowledge. Here are some things to watch. Be sure to sound the full ing sound in words ending in ing. Calling, watching, going, seeing. Be sure to sound the final T in words such as except, test, left, swept, kept. Always give full value to the consonant sounds in these words. Antarctic, climactic, asked, district, 100, risked, 12th. Be sure to sound all the syllables in words like this. Accidentally, boundary, cemetery, chocolate, diamond, February, itinerary, laboratory, medicine, occasionally, particularly. Leaving out syllables, vowels, and consonants account for most mispronunciations, and adding sounds is also a problem at times. U, as in news, except in the words so, shrew, and after J, R, and C when they're preceded by a consonant. The silent T can be another source of trouble. The most common example is the word often. This is one of the most commonly mispronounced words in the English language. Remember that T is silent in often. Other examples are apostle, epistle, soften, and hasten. Here's a tip on proper names. Radio news wire services will usually spell proper names phonetically in stories they report, if there's any doubt about the proper pronunciation. However, in local news stories, there's often no source of reference to guide you. If a deadline prevents me from determining the correct pronunciation by phoning or asking someone, here's a tip to remember. Look at the person's name and ask yourself, if this were my name, how would I pronounce it? When it comes to the pronunciation of foreign names, remember that I am not expected to pronounce these words exactly the same way a native would. Every announcer, though, should know the basic rules of pronunciation of at least French, German, and Spanish. I can find these in dozens of textbooks that are readily available, and there are some excellent recorded courses on the basics of many foreign languages. One excellent book that covers the names of cities and towns all over is World Words, printed by the Columbia University Press. For any announcer aspiring to become a newscaster, this is a valuable book to have around. Foreign place names have become anglicized through the years and are pronounced quite differently in English than they are in the native language. Some obvious examples are Paris, Rome, Marseille, Warsaw, Copenhagen, and Madrid. Good pronunciation stems from ingrained habits. Get into the habit of using a dictionary and constantly referring to it. I only use a word when I know the accepted pronunciation, or I look it up. General pronunciation tests self-evaluation. The following pronunciation test was used at an audition. The director expected less than 5 errors. I can record this paragraph and check the pronunciations in a dictionary. The old man with a flaccid face and dour expression grimaced when asked if he were conversant with zoology or the culinary arts. Not to be secretive, he said, I may tell you that I had given precedence to the study of genealogy. Yet, since my father's demise, it has been my vagary to remain incognito due to an inexplicable, lamentable, and irreparable family schism. It resulted from a heinous crime committed at our domicile by an impious scoundrel. To err is human, but this affair was so painfully grievous that only my inherent acumen and consummate tact has saved me. Place names test self-evaluation. The correct pronunciation of places and names is extremely important in voice acting. I practice the proper pronunciation of all places and names. Antarctica, Archipelago, Ankara, Aegean Sea, Bucharest, Copenhagen, Dunkirk, Ganges River, Gulag, Guadeloupe, Potomac, Sao Paulo, Saudi Arabia, Thames River,